Welcome back to Bleav in Softball. I'm your host, Jenna, and we are back. We took a break last week. I was actually in New Zealand for the first time ever. I have a friend there. I've known her for 10 years, and it took me this long, and more on that later. But it's just hard to believe the college softball season is halfway done. The days are long and the weeks are short. But Women's History Month is also technically over, but not really, because we're about it all the time, and we know that here. So however you got here today, whether it was an audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, etc., or watching on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your pods. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. And of course, there's the merch. Click the link in our bio on either of those pages or go to shop.bleav.com to purchase 3 different shirts available for you, covering our bases in purple, Safer Out in black, and Catch You Soon in white. All right, let's go through today's batting order. First, we'll be covering our bases. I'll share some call-outs from the softball world. Then we'll head into today's interview with Megan Bartlett, the newest head coach in the Pac-12. She's in her second season at ASU, the only leader in the pack that we haven't officially had on the show before. We did have Trisha Ford back in the day, but since she's moved to A&M and Bartlett has come on board to ASU, we are obviously overdue. So I'm very excited. This is actually part 1 of our conversation. Part 2 will come out next week, and you'll actually get to see a little bit before and after the series at Stanford this weekend that I will be broadcasting. Then we'll end things with the foul tip of the week, where we share tips to help us get better. All right, let's go. Covering our bases. It's down to the last 4 teams. BetOnline has been your tournament bracket headquarters all March long, and now that we're almost down to the finals, we've still got a lot more in store. The MLB is here, and NBA, NHL playoffs are around the corner as always. BetOnline is the number 1 source for your summer sports wagering. Head to BetOnline today to stay updated on all the action, and remember to use promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That is BLEAV, Bleav. BetOnline, the game starts here. And a great opportunity with Rip It Sports also starts here. I'm getting my ringer turfs ready for another weekend, calling games on TV, and I feel just right at home wearing them, especially when I go onto the field and I chat with players and teams. It just feels right. And it's even cooler because of their mission, which is to elevate female athletic performance. They understand that women and girls deserve gear specifically tailored to our unique needs, gear that fits right, performs well, and meets our demands. So, Rip It is offering an exclusive 15% discount. Just use the code Jenna15 when you shop at ripit.com. That's JENNA15. This is your chance to experience the same quality gear that helps so many women and girls excel. And I have to say, the last time that I was on the call for the Arizona and Cal series before I left for New Zealand, that was one of the most exciting series that I have seen. I mean, these are 2 ranked teams going up against each other. I was really excited going into it, and it just didn't disappoint. And I have to give a specific shout out to Haley Archer. Cal's pitcher, she threw 291 pitches in 4 appearances within 5 days. That includes 2 complete game wins. One of them was a midweek shutout against Sac State at home. Then she won game 2 of the series in extra innings, going the distance. And in addition to that, she obviously got the save as well to win the series at the very end in game 3, and she came in relief in game 1 too. So she might be a bear, but she was an absolute dog in the circle for Cal. She didn't win Pac-12 Pitcher of the Week that week, but she had my vote. And part of it too is because I've actually been able to cover her and her class her entire career. She's shown so much growth. And Chelsea Spencer said she feels like she's probably grown the most on the team. She's a senior this year. She's a captain. She's in control too. She had just as many walks as strikeouts last year, and she just stayed so composed. And it just felt like she's really reaching her peak in her last season. with Cal. And honestly, it was just a dog fight because it was back and forth between these two teams. One team would score. Usually it was Arizona first. Then they would tie it up and back and forth and back and forth. And there were 11 home runs in the series. Double digits. 7 were Cal. The conference leaders in the Pac-12, they lead in long balls. And then Arizona's up there as well. The other 4 were from them. Acacia Anders for Cal. Man, she was the Pac-12 player of the week, and she really deserved it. And I have to give the shout out to Allie Skaggs, too, the All-American for Arizona. She was nominated, too. She had a couple of home runs. So it was just excellent on both sides offensively, a slugfest, and also several double plays. And they were on both sides, too. So both sides of the ball a little bit was exciting to watch. And then I think what tipped it over the edge for Cal, which was so exciting to see, is that in game 2, they actually tied it up, scoring 5 runs in the bottom of the 7th. That's what took it to extras. Haley Archer stayed in the circle, as I mentioned, but there were 3 home runs. Anders, Tiana Bell, Elon Butler, all in the bottom of the 7th. And it was at home, right? So it was in Bear territory, and it ended up being their 3rd straight series that they would go on to win over U of A, which is a big deal. Last time that happened was about a decade prior. So I think, the theme for me was just, it was Wildcats and home runs and Bears. Oh my, like that's how it felt. And I can't help but respect it because those are the types of battles that we love to see. And I just think this was a good example, and the energy was really cool to be a part of. And then in addition to some collegiate softball things, the Golden Bay Collegiate League is actually expanding. So I know that I've shared with you that I'm actually going to be on the call covering them this summer. I'm very excited about it, but it was originally 4 teams, adding 2 more teams to the roster, Pacific Waves and the SoCal Stars. And our recent guest, Leah O'Brien Amico, is behind the ownership of both teams. Actually, her new book came out today. It's called The Gold Standard: 14 Ways to Live a Life of Excellence. We talked about it in our episode with her earlier this season, just a few weeks back. So check that out if you haven't yet. And I just love it when worlds collide. I'm excited for the crossover with that piece and then the GBCL this summer because collaboration is always the best. Speaking of which, collaboration at the pro and international level is getting me excited. The OKC Spark is at the center of it, really. So they're going to play Team USA and Great Britain in late June after the Women's College World Series. A couple things here. I mean, what a way to prep for the World Cup this summer, for the USA team, for the British team, before the Olympics too. We're not in the Olympics this year, but the World Cup is coming up before that. And I think this is just an excellent way for them to get ready, right? To be in that kind of environment. And then we talked to Leah actually about, what do we have to do to get back into the Olympics? Like, what do we need to do for our sport to make that a consistent thing? And she talked about, global growth, right? And we talked about starting that kind of the grassroots level, the exposure level. So a team like Great Britain, for example, coming from Europe, having that global growth and exposure is a big deal. They have American staff too. Our other past guest, Tara Henry, the head coach, they've added a Texas assistant coach to the staff for Great Britain as well. I think bringing that kind of knowledge, that's a way that we can help grow the game, right? So those are the little steps that we need to take. The other thing I love, though, not just internationally, within the pro space. So the OKC Spark are also going to play against Athletes Unlimited at Hall of Fame Stadium in Oklahoma City. This is going to be July 12th and 13th. It's after AUX. And the first word that comes to mind, honestly, is finally, because there's collaboration within pro softball. We are going to need that. We need all of our efforts to be streamlined and combined all in the right direction, I think, for this to be a sustainable thing for young girls to dream about in the long run, to be professional softball players. And maybe only having to be professional softball players, not having multiple jobs at once, et cetera, like we've talked about with guests like Jessie Warren, for example. So happy about that kind of collaboration, and I can't wait to cover it all and share more with you. And then just some of my stuff that you guys follow along with. So a new D1 softball episode came out this week with my co-host Amanda Lorenz. She killed it last week when I was in New Zealand. She interviewed Rothrock and Brown from Florida. So it was a little bit of a Gator sesh, which was really fun. We reunited this week, and you can check it out on the D1 Softball YouTube or just wherever you get your podcasts. And then coming up, I mentioned it briefly, but I am calling more games on TV with Pac-12 networks. Arizona State coming to Stanford. I'm going to be on the whole series solo, play-by-play and color. And I'm very excited to continue and get this ball rolling here in April. And someone else who will be there this weekend is today's guest. So let's head into the interview. She is the Arizona State head coach, a retired pro, and All-American player at Notre Dame, Megan Bartlett. Coach, I'm so excited that we're finally connecting. I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jenna.
I have always really enjoyed watching the ASU program. I wouldn't necessarily tell my cousin that because my cousin went into ASU, so we always have some fun little banter. He studied engineering there. His name's Tyler, and
very good.
So we have a little Pac-12 family rivalry, which is fun.
That's awesome. It's the biggest engineering school in the country now. Yeah, we're quite proud of it. It's pretty impressive.
It is. And I know that. Again, I try not to let him know that I know that, but but I definitely, it's very cool. Between that and also the journalism school that you guys have there.
Yeah, Cronkite does a great job.
Yes, they're excellent. And it's funny too, because my aunt tells me this, I think every single softball season, because they used to come watch me every time we played at ASU, even if we played at U of A too, but we'd go to Kajikawa, we'd, play at ASU, all that good stuff. And they always loved to come watch us. And they were actually, if my cousin Tyler was a girl, they would have named her Taylor. And so because Taylor Becerra actually played at ASU, yeah, they were so excited about it. And then actually I ended up interviewing Taylor at one point on this show. And, we call each other cousins. We're not related, but we like to think we are.
She's lovely. I got to meet her at an alumni event this year.
Yeah. She's great. We've also had Sachelle Palacios on, who's another alum. That's awesome.
Rock star. New Mexico.
Yes, she's there. Yes, so cool. And I actually finally got to meet her in person this season. I interviewed her back in 2020, first season of the show. Finally this year got to meet her in person. So I was so excited about that too.
Yeah. The alum crowd here is pretty cool. Awesome ball players. They love the program. They show up in full force with a ton of pride. So it's and they like to get after it.
Yeah.
So you can hear them coming. They're big, they're loud, they're fun. Certainly program raised them well. So.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I kind of started there too, obviously all the personal ties, but also because, it's hard to believe you're only in your second season, by the way. It feels that in some
wild
ways.
Ride. Wild year and a half.
Yeah, it's has it really been a year and a half? But it has, apparently.
It has.
But I would imagine that coming into a program like you have, that building those relationships with the alumni is important.
Good.
Yeah.
And we've spent a lot of time trying to build that gap. It's an interesting thing, especially when the reality of this program, it's one for a long time. Coach Myers was amazing. Took off for the SEC, right? And then Craig Nicholson, then of course Coach Ford, and then heads off to the SEC again. So it's just every, 6, 7, 8 years, it feels like there was kind of a, then of course the wonderful Linda Wells, right, who built the whole thing and kind of built the Taj Mahal that we still exist in. So just trying to bring all the alums who are so prideful, but just connected to different people by nature of who they played for here. So not only trying to create those relationships, right, and kind of their different subgroups, and then pull the whole thing together, right, to support these kids. They've been amazing. They've been great. And they're a big part of Club Farrington rocking on the weekends. So we're certainly, it's a proud crew. It's a fun crew. And it's been meaningful and kind of awesome getting to know them.
Yeah. I always like playing at Club Farrington as well, because it wasn't the best when you have everyone rooting against you. But the atmosphere was still fun, I thought. I remember different times when we played there too, there being the powwow, out past center field, and that adding a whole other layer to our experience, right? And just seeing those different types of things going on campus as well was really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly in the I don't know, last 5 to 10 years. Like campus, the actual main part of Tempe doesn't look anything like when I was in college, right?
Yeah.
It has certainly kind of turned into an urban campus, and it's vibrant, and right, it's got great food culture and interesting people, and there is certainly, it's gorgeous weather year round, so there's always something to do and someone to go see and something going on. So it's a special campus environment. Sunshine and palm trees tend to make people happy. Every time I walk out on the field, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be in life. So, but yeah, it is certainly a special place.
Well, that's always a good feeling, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think I remember back in, might have been January or like early February, like as the season was about to start, some programs were posting like, hey, it's easy to play in Paradise year round, and I remember seeing ASU in that mix. And I was like, yeah, kind of bummer for for those programs dealing with a little bit more weather, but hey,
Oh man,
great for
yeah, I
you.
certainly don't miss like taking ground balls on a gym floor for 4 months, right? And then 6 weekends in a row on a plane. Yeah, just so I certainly lived the other side of the coin, right, for a long time, most of my coaching career and playing career. So certainly very grateful. Like I do not take a bit of that sunshine and the ability to be outside year round. And again, yeah, stare at palm trees and play in gorgeous weather. I don't take any of it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And some upgrades to the facility as
Yeah.
well, right? That's so
Yeah, you
exciting.
can
Can you
see
tell
the
me more
walls
about
are
it?
very gray. The graphics company hasn't finished the project yet, so it's going to look great, when it's done. But we are about 80% complete. So, yeah, going through this season, putting a team back together for the second year in a row, a lot of transfers. We've been under construction. It's been a little crazy, but certainly good problems to have.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so people understand too, like what types of upgrades are you making? Because sometimes I think we see these announcements, right? But it's like, what do those upgrades actually mean? You know?
Yeah, for us, it was the entire player facility. So they very cleverly kind of built that up under the grandstands, really from the middle all the way down through the third base side, all the way out to the hitting facility. So it all connects, but it was a brand new training room, mud room, locker room, team lounge, player lounge, new offices for us, and coaching locker room. So really, it's amazing. It's beautiful, and it's such a, I don't know. It's a beautiful space. It's a functional space, and something the kids love to be here. There's a stocked kitchen 2 doors down, so they're literally here all the time because they eat here all the time.
Yeah.
And yes, the Costco runs are quite impressive, right? It's like 2 massive fridges and they're always full. And then the kids are like, we're out of our favorite Uncrustables and those special burritos Miss Georgie buys. And I'm like, man, this is a different life than it was 15 years ago. But yes, we will refill those burritos for sure. So,
That's
but
hilarious.
but they love it. They're constantly hanging in the lounge and in the locker room, and we need to keep them out of the training room. But but yeah, it's a brand new space and feeds into the indoor hitting facility, which is, man, I think only 5 years old. 5 years old sounds about right, because I think when Coach Colitis got here, that was the first year it had opened. So the kids are pretty set. They're in a pretty good place. So
Living the dream. I love
mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm.
I like that it's becoming more normal because yeah, my early years in college experience was very different from that. We did get a lot more in the later years, and I've learned since then how much it changed even from the beginning of the program's history to
Mm-hmm.
my experience, let alone how it is now. So I just love seeing that kind of growth.
Same. We've been I've been lucky. I think this is the third facility I've opened in my, just by happenstance, right, in my coaching
Yeah.
career. So it's a great thing for women's sports. These girls work so hard, right, and they put so much of their heart and soul into what they do. So to be able to provide that kind of space and awesome experience for them,
Yeah.
pretty special.
And you mentioned Coach Colitis, and I wanted to ask you about your staff too, because anytime I talk to a coach who's either establishing a brand new program, right, or coming in to rebuild a program, whatever it looks like, the staff is so important. And he's
Yes.
somebody who was a common denominator as well, who stayed throughout your
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Obviously, Jimmy and I have been friends for a long time. We come from the same coaching tree now, right? With my time at Texas with Coach White. So I moved 1,000 miles west, farther away from my family, and I never thought I would do that. But keeping Jimmy here was a big piece of that. I think I laugh all the time that I spoke this crazy journey into existence in some form way back in the Ball State days. Like I remember having this conversation, and I had said like my dream staff, like if I ever got to build one and got to do it on a big stage, was going to be Jeremy Manley and Jimmy Colitis. And then fast forward, a pandemic, and gosh, I don't know, 3-4 years later, here we are. So if Jimmy's incredible at what he does. He's one of the best recruiters in the country. He's a great hitting coach, and just a really solid guy, right? Like you can trust him, and he works incredibly hard. And every summer, without fail, I feel like every job open in the country, right? He gets a phone call like, "Hey, you interested? You want to move?" So certainly he had a ton of opportunities to move on from ASU, but he and his wife Jess, they love it here, and ended up being a incredibly happy fit, right? So I'm thrilled to keep him. So excited that I got to put the band back together with Jeremy Manley. He is one of the best pitching coaches in the country, if not the world. He is very special at what he does. And my favorite part about him is he can coach, right? Like it's not just the instruction piece. Like he can certainly build a Ferrari in the bullpen. That's not a question. But I think coaches and really that was why I built this staff. It was for glue people, culture builders, relationship builders. And that's what he does extremely well, right? That gets those pitchers to work and grind and Bleav. And so I'm excited, with obviously we're pretty banged up on the mound. Kenzie Brown, you won't see her this season, right? She's redshirting, and Kylie McGee's been day to day. So really Marissa Schold and Deborah Jones, Mac Osborne have had to take on the bulk of the work. And, he was certainly in a tough spot, and he's done a great job. But that's certainly a product of who Jeremy is as a human, right? That he's a world champion pitcher, and he is one at the most elite level of our sport. And he's a competitor, and he's fiery. But man, like he's so good with those girls, right? Like the subculture of the pitching unit is a really, really special thing here. They support each other, they push each other. A lot of just, I think, genuine care, right? Like there's just a lot of sincerity for who they are and what they're about and how hard they work and how that kind of fuels the entire program. And he just does a great job. And then there was the addition from the very young baby level of the coaching tree, the wonderful Haley Decker, All-American at Nebraska, went home and played her last 2 years for Coach White and Coach Colitis at Oregon. So, Haley is actually from the family tree, as we say, and she's our defensive coordinator, and she is one of the brightest young minds in the game. She grew up an MLB baby. Her dad caught for the Giants and the Marlins. So she laughs that she's like, "What do you mean kids can't break down their own film? I was breaking down my own film since I was 8. What's happening?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sis, you're just a unicorn." And she really is. She's so good. She certainly has got that young, fiery charisma about her, right? That the young ones gravitate toward. But my goodness, she can systematically break down every single part of the game, right? For us right now, she's the defensive coordinator, but she knows exactly what she's doing at the plate, the offensive side. She's a great sounding board. She's loyal. She's funny. She's hardworking. So really, really proud of the crew we put together here.
Well, that's where it all starts, right? Like how are your pitchers going to have that kind of special culture you're talking about, for example, if the one that's leading them day to day isn't igniting that, right? And that goes for
100%.
across the board. So that's I always love to hear that because that's always the goal. But to actually do it is sometimes, a different story. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're an exceptional group of humans, right? They're my family and some of the people I just love most in the world. And it's a lot of trust and grind and support and candor, a lot of honesty, right? Because when you're feet to the fire together, and I'm like, we've got to make smart decisions, we've got to make quicker decisions than I think we normally would with the recruiting under control, right? Being in
Mm.
years, I don't know, 5, 6 down the road, because we've had to do a lot, right? And the year and a half we've worked together, so that certainly requires a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And you make decisions and you make the best decision you can in that moment. You support each other and you roll with it, and you keep it moving. So I'm just honestly super grateful. They all chose and continue to choose to be Sun Devils.
Well, that's the thing. When you are rebuilding the way that you were when you came in last year and like continuing to build now,
Mm-hmm.
where do you start? Because I don't know if people understand how hard it is what you've been
Yeah.
doing, right? Because yes, when there are coaching changes, we see a lot of movement as well with rosters and things, especially in today's day and age. But just I've been impressed with what you all have been able to do in such a short time.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. So with the transfer portal and the chasing NIL and all the crazy things happening, yeah, we took over. I think there were 8 kids left on the roster when I got
Yeah.
hired, right? So we had to put a team together. So the first thing is you need players.
Yeah.
When if you ever get in that situation, you're like, okay, we've got to all call everybody we know, right? Start to comb through the portal, and really kind of get down to it, right? While you're doing all the things that we traditionally think of,
Yeah.
a reload, a rebuild, new coaching staff, trying to get your clubhouse and your culture in the place you want it. What are our shared values? What's my vision, right, for how we're going to execute all of those things? And it's been a lot. But again, like my staff's been amazing, and we've been able to lean on a lot of relationships that we have, across the country, just to make sure the first thing for me is we are going to be women of high character, right? Like
Mm.
we are going to do things with class and we are going to do things with respect, and there's going to be grind there. But you don't get to be a Sun Devil if you at your very core are not a woman that knows how to empower and lift up and sometimes challenge, right? But if you're not a woman that can empower another woman and you don't sincerely have that in your heart, you're not going to last long here.
Mm.
And that anymore, I feel like, is kind of everything. Like your culture is everything, your clubhouse is everything, and who you bring into it is certainly, right, going to be the product of what it looks like. And these kids are our family, and there's points in the year. Coach K and I both have young ones, right? And I laugh all the time that we spend more time with, the college kids than we do with our own kids sometimes. But this group certainly makes it easy. I can tell you that's the one thing that I feel like we're in a really, really good place. We got to get healthy.
Yeah. Well,
But if they were all healthy, I think we're rolling. Like the clubhouse is just in a great place. Have a nice leaders, Kelsey Hall, Kinsey Brown. So thank you. It's been a lot in the last year and a half, and I think we didn't skimp anywhere, and that's the piece I love. Like the high school kids we have coming in, really, really, really excited about them, their talent level, their families, just who they are, as people. So while we were getting all the transfers in here, right, and able to put
yeah.
teams together that we thought were going to represent the program the right way, and start to build that culture and clubhouse to the place we really want it to be, at the same time had to keep, right, kind of the organic, young ones and the recruiting, on track, and really, really excited about them too. So yeah, it's an interesting thing this day and age. I feel sometimes more like a GM, right,
Yeah.
than I do a
Mm.
coach. And with the advent of the portal and NIL, and just really an incredible for the sport and women in athletics, but just the visibility of what comes with that now,
Mm.
and social media. So I am certainly not a social media queen. I literally think the kids like unlocked my Instagram a week ago. They're like, you have to use this for recruiting. And I'm like, I really don't want to. Like, there's pictures of my kids on there. I think that's kind of weird. And they're like, give us your phone. Oh. So they did all the things. So they are hilarious, actually. Yeah. A lot of candor, a lot of fun in the clubhouse. But they work hard. But yes, they continue to teach me every single day.
Well, and even the fact that they're thinking about those things, like you said, like everyone's very much trying to help each other out, and they are a family, and they think of this as like they are part of this too. So the fact that they're like, hey, for recruiting, we want to help the program itself, right?
Yes.
It's not just about like them or even this team today. It's about like the future of the program too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're special girls. They're good girls. They've got good perspective, good heads on their shoulders. And yeah, they want to see the program be amazing. Certainly, right? Tons of, especially that we have a lot of fifth years right now, right? So a lot of the fifth years on the roster, I mean, they had 100 places, right? They could have gone to play when they entered the program, and they wanted to finish it here and wanted to help us build and do all the things. So we are certainly extremely grateful.
Yeah. I love the way you put it, that you didn't skimp anywhere, right? There are no cutting corners. You still have those standards. You had 8 players, right? But you're like, but we're not just, that doesn't mean we're going to take anybody in. Like this still needs to be our standard. And you said it, our values, et cetera. I think that's really important because it's easy in life, right? Just to cut corners sometimes. So I think that's a great example of not doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. We didn't sleep for the first year.
Yeah.
It just required nobody sleeping for the first year.
Yeah.
So yeah, as time goes on, I think it's going to be really, really good. I think the program's going to be, in this day and age, I don't think anybody who does our job for a living would take for granted stability, right? Stability in your roster management, stability in your clubhouse, and to some degree, man, just having happy kids. They love where they're at. They love each other. They love to play. And it's very like most basic essence. If that's what we can get out of, this generation and this group and the next group and the group after that, we're going to be in great shape. Because I know we've got great talent coming in the door. Again, good kids, like they're good students, they're good daughters, they're good sisters, they're great ball players. So yeah, future is definitely bright.
Yeah, and I want to hear even more about some of the team personalities. Like who, for example, feels like, oh wow, this one person, or maybe it's more than one, are just super inspirational for the rest of the group.
Yeah, I think of course the first person you would think of is Marissa Scholl, right? Certainly has faced an incredible amount of adversity in her now 6 years of college. So we joke and call her Dr. Marissa. You should be heading off to med school when you're done with this. But she is tough and she's feisty. And I don't know that there's going to be anything that happens in her life that's ever going to be able to break her. Right. She is resilient and she's smart. And it's been fun to watch the process of her kind of growing into not just her voice, but I think finding how to interact and communicate with people and like, I think a more calm, thoughtful, right? Like all good things in life happen in balance. So to watch Marissa just mature and grow has been a really fun thing. Kelsey Hall is certainly the vocal leader around here. She is a big personality and competitive and feisty and fun and certainly eloquent, like far beyond her years. Lily Denby is our silent leader. Lee will not say much, right? But she's taking care of business on the field. She's our Iron Devil. So she is the combination of like the strongest, fastest. It's quite a big honor here to be named Iron Devil. Yeah. And then of course, Kenzie Brown, Kylie McGee.
Yeah.
Kids, we got to get healthy.
Right.
But they, even though they're pitchers, both of those two in particular, they just compete so well, right? They are not people that talk to hear themselves talk. And interestingly enough, with that pitching staff, I feel like more so than most pitching staffs I've been around, they're very wired into their team and kind of the pulse and what's going on. And just are very, very level-headed women with, I think, a strong sense of self and good balance, right? Kenzie is extremely grounded in her faith. She wants to be a police officer when she's done. She interns with ASUPD in the summers. She gets to do a desk job this summer. Now, no cowboy stuff while she is rehabbing back. And then, of course, Kylie is this brilliant fashion designer, right? She's a brilliant artist. Her dorm room last year was so funny, right? Because all the freshmen had their little suite in the dorm, and we run up there and take recruits up. And her whole wall above her bed were all of her colored in sketches from her design class with
That's so
her,
cool.
right? She's just, Kai is so talented, right? But certainly gives her good balance, right? That she's so inspired by that and passionate and motivated about it. Kylie just runs on this really kind of high, not jittery wavelength, but she's just a woman that does a lot of things well.
Yeah.
She gets out there, she rips some change-ups and some rise balls, and she's like, yeah, I'm heading off to the lab. She's got a sewing machine in her room, She's like, I'm going to finish this. And she is just one of those people, right? That I think like talent, effervescence kind of flow through her. So yeah, it's a good group of kids like that. I think so a lot of personality, right? And a lot of fun. And I don't know that we've had to deal with any team drama this year, which I think in a group of 22 chicks, like could win some sort of award for, right?
Yeah.
Just good girls.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that is a big deal, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is, right? Especially in the formative years that they're in during this time. There's a lot going on. So that is a big deal.
Yeah. And a lot pulling at their time. More so, right? Many years ago when I played in college, I feel like the no portal, no NIL, social media wasn't even really a thing. Like you could go about life in your business and no one knew what you were doing. But I'm like, girls, think about life like this. And they're like, oh, that was a thing. Yes. If the social media existed with my generation, I don't know that any of us would be employable adults. Like you guys got the short end of the stick with this stuff. Like careful with these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I feel like I sound like I'm 65 right now, but
No, this is also how I know I'm getting older because I know what you're saying. Like I get it. I relate to it. And I'm like, oh, yep, that's how I know,
Well, the whole it didn't happen if it's not online. Like, no, it happened. It's going to live in your brain. Please do not put that on the internet. Yeah.
That's so funny. And I know you said you're not a huge social media person. Glad you're welcome back to Instagram. But I have seen like on your Twitter and things that you'll share. And it is around what you're talking about. Like you talked about wanting high character women. And you talked about the clubhouse a lot, right? And the culture piece that goes in it. And I've seen you share things that are about like mentality, like what really goes into success, what success even really means, and like talking about the person and not just the athlete. I have noticed like those types of themes pop up when you're, inspired to share something, basically. So you've touched on it already, but I would just ask, like, why are those things so important?
Oh man, I think it's everything. I think your connection drives commitment, right? And so much of that is psychological safety in a clubhouse. And with us, it is always people first. Like I have told these guys, I'm like, we will win a national championship at Arizona State, right? Like it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I have absolutely no doubt the group of kids we have coming into the fold, the staff I have, we are going to make those things happen. But if I never win a national championship and I am graduating young women from this program, they are smart, they are strong, they have, you know what I mean? A really grounded sense of self. Like you guys are ready to attack the business world. You know what it means to be people, have grace and be a good communicator, and you're going to be great wives. You're going to be great moms, daughters. Like if we're getting that piece right, and I don't ever win a national championship, I take that 100 times out of 100. right? Like
Mm.
that is in my soul why I do this job. And that, so I think some of it is just who I am as a human. And I came from a wonderful program. Deanna Gumpf is amazing. I was certainly like, there's such a, I'm 40 and like, oh, Dee and I will get in some like random conversation out recruiting. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was such a brat. And she's like, you are not that bad. Stop apologizing. Literally, like, my God, you're going to be in a nursing home and you're still going to be saying that. And I'm like, I don't know. But she's positive and she's graceful and she's lovely. And this was certainly like my parents' vision long before it was mine. But I remember my mom said to me in the recruiting process in high school, we had kind of narrowed it down, right, to 2 or 3 places. And she's like, my vote, I want you to go to Notre Dame because I want you to watch a young mom grind. Like, I want you to live that with her every day. I want you to not only make it better, right? I mean, it was a top 10 program when I signed. So, but she's like, there's value in that. Like you need to see, and I didn't want to coach, right? Like I certainly thought I was going to be an attorney and in-house counsel, or at that time, I actually thought I was going to run large hospitals. I was going to be like a COO in a large, HCA or some sort of big healthcare corporation. And it was honestly the best advice. I looked at my mom like she was crazy and had 6 heads. I'm like, I don't even want kids. I don't even know what you're talking about, lady. And now here we are, of course. Like, your parents are always right. It's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating.
I hope Biggie and Marin are listening to this and will watch it at some point. My little. But yeah, Deanna was incredible. So I think, who knows, like maybe that's how we, ended up here. That I had such an incredible 4 years and such a wonderful experience that I've just tried to recreate that, right? And continue to pay all those blessings forward and just be somebody who's strong and steady and passionate and, as a wife and as a mom and, trying to grind and get this thing right in the coaching world. And the kids see that, right? Like our kids are around. Like we have a sick kid with a snotty nose. I'm like, yeah, Vivi's in the dugout. Don't go near her. She's sick, or whatever, the kids are all over the place sometimes. But I think it certainly gives the girls a sense of, I'm glad family. That piece is important to me. This transactional nature of what we've created in college athletics, that is certainly a pro model, right?
Yeah, right.
This is young people from the ages of 18 to 22. And honestly, this generation is post-pandemic, right? So there was, I think, just a lot of, especially with their emotional maturity, their ability to communicate and socialize to other humans, right? Not to do it behind a phone. Those things took a back seat for a while. So we are certainly playing a little bit of catch up there. But yeah, that's the family piece is, and it's a double-edged sword. It's not all sparkles and sunshine, right? Like your family is also the people who can put a mirror in front of you, right? And say the hard thing and you're going to have to hear it, right? No matter how much it's going to hurt in that moment too. So that kind of candor, but for them to see the work and the grind, right? And the passion, and then you've got to suck it up because I had a tough day at work, or, we took a frustrating loss, and then I go home and guess what my 9-year-old and 7-year-old really don't care about if we lost the ball game, right? Yeah. They just want to see mommy, and you've got to be a parent and figure out how to emotionally regulate and flip the script and go be what the people in your life need.
Yeah.
So that's our crazy life that the kids have full on access to. The girls are some of my kids' favorite babysitters.
Of course.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of trust and love within the program.
It was great to finally connect with Megan, especially before calling ASU's games this weekend. Give you a little taste too of the pre-broadcast conversations that we actually have with coaches when we're preparing. I mean, although I saved some of the more revealing stuff for us to chat about off camera, after we recorded, like player availability, what's the strategy potentially against the opponent, starters, all those things. We can't give that away publicly right beforehand, but those are things that we confidentially try to learn about amongst ourselves, just the crew within production going into these so that we can share that insight while it's happening during the series. So I also like to get to know the essence of a program though, not just the X's and the O's. And that means the person too, right? So with Megan Bartlett, we've started to do that. And there's more to come in part 2 next week. So with that, let's transition to the foul tip of the week. This week's foul tip is about doing the thing. We all have a quote unquote thing that we'd like to do, whether it's a dream, an accomplishment, an obstacle to overcome, a challenge or a fear to face, a habit we want to make or break, or just something that we've always wanted to do. Whatever it is, I feel like everybody has a thing that they're working on. For Coach Bartlett, she dove in head first. We talked about it, rebuilding the program at ASU. It's a big career move for her, but it was a physical move with her family as well. But she's doing the thing, right? Like she's going for it. And I would say that I have a few things in my life. And one of them that I also know I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the episode, I have wanted to go to New Zealand for over 10 years, and I finally did it. So long story short, I first met my friend Amelia at a summer program at the Stanford Business School. And in that program, the majority of the students were international, and I had never been out of the country at that time. So it was very eye-opening for me. It was a learning experience for me beyond just the classroom. And Amelia is from New Zealand, and she was a really big part of that experience. And we've stayed great friends ever since. So since then, I've wanted to visit her there. We've talked about it forever. She's been back to the US multiple times. I'd been out of the country since. I've been to Europe, Mexico, but I still hadn't made the trip to New Zealand. Well, she's getting married this year. Her wedding is actually the same week as the Pac-12 tournament, which totally gutted me. I mean, I told her that was the only week I couldn't do ahead of time, but the scheduling just worked out that way with her family and with all the moving pieces that they have going on, her and her fiance. So in the past, I've kind of pushed things like this out again in moments like this. But this time I just decided to do the thing. So I had told her, if it's not if I'm coming this year, it's just figuring out when. And her bachelorette happened to fall on one of the only weekends this spring that my schedule didn't have broadcasts. So I booked it. Flew out Sunday night after calling the third game of the Arizona Cal series on TV. Flew back a week later, leading up to my next weekend of broadcasts coming up with Arizona State and Stanford. I got to finally have our visit together during the week, like just the visit to New Zealand that we'd been talking about for so long. And still got to celebrate that she's getting married too, and be there for a life event. Like leading up to the wedding, this is one of the events that's a part of it. So I did the thing, right? And I had communicated my trip to my employers and all that, but after I booked, I was actually last minute offered more games to broadcast that week. So the question in front of me was, do I still do the thing? Or do I do what I always do and put it off? I stuck with the thing. And I have absolutely no regrets. One of the best trips of my life. I mean, we went to Hobbiton for all the Lord of the Rings fans who appreciate the Shire. We went blackwater rafting in the caves to see the glowworms. Went to the hot pools, saw some natural thermal activity there. I sailed on the lake in Taupo, some of the best chocolate milk and ice cream I've ever had because dairy there is a huge thing and it's very elite. Fun fact. And I got to see my friend's life and her people on another side of the world. So I got to be the kind of friend I want to be too. And it's not like it hurt my career or anything. I just prioritized accordingly. And it feels good. It took me 10 years, but I did it. And I never would have thought that I'd take a trip like that in the middle of softball season, which is my busiest time. But I'm proud of myself because I think it's a good feeling when you don't just talk about something, but you be about it. You do what you say what you do. Applies to anything. Softball, plenty beyond that too. So that's it. Do the thing. That's the foul tip of the week. You've been listening to Bleav in Softball, part of Bleav Network and presented by BetOnline. The show is available anywhere you get your podcasts, wherever you listen, including Bleav.com and YouTube too. Subscribe to the show, rate the show, and if you liked it, write a review. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bleav in Softball. That's BLEAV. You can reach out to me personally on Twitter or X at Jenna Becerra01 and Instagram at Jenna Becerra as well. As always, thank you for tuning in and catch you soon.